Hold up, I ain't trying to stunt, man, but the Yeezys jumped over the jump, man. I be in and out of arenas like I'm Scottie Pippen. Left my elbow in the pot, a la Vince Carter.
Bitch, you weren't with me shooting in the gym?
James Harden with the range on me, nigga, way back.
Coach, they won't knock me off my pivot, get it.
Been flowing stupid since Vince Carter was on some through the legs arm and a hoop shit.
And you can live through anything if magic made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, now you do.
Okay. Yes, sir. We are back. Round of applause for yourselves. This is your guy, Marcellus Ease. And of course, you already know, we're cooking up with the stories today. Lots of things are going on in the league. A little bit of hint of madness as usual, but we're going to get into it. As first, we'll touch base with the heavy, very analytical NBA front offices, as this season they will be put into the test on some of their philosophies that are kind of currently dying in this NBA era. Small ball is pretty much out of here, and in this positionless, quote-unquote parity era, we're seeing a little bit of the physicality being brought right back in, as well as the big man making his return. We're definitely going to get into it, as we'll also hear from Bob Myers as he expresses some of the sentiments coming out of the Jaylen Brown situation by him not being liked by the data-driven guys. He gives us great insight on how the Warriors ignored the analytics when it came to one of the most important players during that Stephen Curry championship run. Speaking of championship-bound teams, we're going to head up to Minnesota and check out Ant-Man with his new partner in crime, LaMelo Ball. There has been a lot of politics ever since Karl-Anthony Towns had exited that team with the new ownership and the way they're trying to conserve a little bit of their spending. If this LaMelo Ball venture does not work out, it could be only a matter of time before Ant-Man looks for his own exit. And speaking of exits, how the hell did Fred VanVleet slide away with just keeping this type of story in the tuck about how he believes Toronto Raptors team right before the pandemic, their recklessness is really what caused Rudy Gobert to test positive for the COVID-19. Lots of interesting stuff. And last but not least, we're going to touch base on a few things that are happening between the Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers that are in between the lines of the Jaylen Brown trade. How will Jason Tatum perform being a number one, especially coming off that Achilles injury? Also, Jaylen Brown now being on the 76ers, does this signify the end of Embiid really being Philadelphia's 1A option? But Philly is very crowded with a lot of ball handlers around the wing. We're going to take a look at their fit. What does it mean for VJ Edgecombe? And the Jaylen Brown dynamic, him just wanting to be the 1A option. Historically, how has that worked out for players when you could take a look at a situation like how it played out with Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady? They're both not only cousins, but still good friends even to this day. But it didn't stop their yearn from wanting to be the guy on the team. So again, we're going to get more in between the lines and kind of tie that VC T-Max situation with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's dynamic, and also Joel Embiid. So within this whole NBA community, or should I say the NBA ecosystem, the heavy analytical crowd is beginning to run into a wall, as not only the small ball era is beginning to close, but certain dynamics within it have ended. AKA the whole situation with Daryl Morey and the trust the process system down there in Philly. We've seen Kenny Atkinson during a playoff run against the Knicks get blown out night in and night out. And he even made statements talking about the analytics said that they were playing correctly. That's another interesting thing about this Knicks run. The makeup of their team, the way they were able to build it brick by brick. The play style of that squad cannot be ignored. But in this segment, we're going to get into it. It's going to be multi-layered. As by the end of it, we're going to hear from Bob Myers as he clarifies how the Warriors were not one of these heavy analytical teams, and them actually ignoring it helped them to go on that major title run during the 2010s. But to start this off, let's hear from Josh Hart during the NBA playoffs and his response to Kenny Atkinson about the analytics, quote unquote, is still saying the Cavs are playing right.
I just try to go out there and just play my game. I'm never a huge analytics guy. At a certain point, they're a lamppost or a drunk person. You can lean on them, but it won't get you home. So at a certain point, you got to have a good feel for the game.
And that very feel of the game in this parity era that we're entering right now in the NBA, it is going to be put to the test. A lot of these heavy analytical franchises have been tanking in the past number of seasons. That's why it's been such a pronounced issue that has to be addressed in multiple occasions during the season. But those very same front offices have been invaded by tech bros, where not only tanking can actually land them a superstar for the cheap. I mean, we're looking at top lottery picks that are going to be slotted into a certain salary for the first 7 seasons. And also the fact that these franchises don't even have to hit the second apron or just pay a bunch of salaries. So that type of proposition looks good to an owner. And that's the kind of language he's used to understanding, instead of talking to basketball people where things get explained in a 4 or 5 year plan in basketball terms. You could look at a team like the Washington Wizards, for example. I'm not saying they use analytics, but what happens when you start progressing and actually having a competitive team going forward, but you run into a wall where you have to pivot so you can continue to get better? That's where those very heavy analytical front offices tend to revert right back into tanking real quick. A franchise like the 76ers, I would say in a way is a perfect example, because they really never understood when to make a pivot. In reality, that same season when they had Jimmy Butler on the team, they should have gotten away from Ben Simmons back then. And fast forward current day, Joel Embiid, he's showing a lot of signs he can no longer be that 1A guy. So can they quickly make another pivot? So at some point, with his contract being locked in for, I believe, 4 or 5 more seasons, are they also going to make a pivot? Daryl Morey has bowed out of that situation. So far, he has shown that he's taken a whole bunch of Hail Marys in his short time in Philly. That's also another place where we begin to see this heavy analytical crowd actually hit a ceiling, which is they can keep these teams competitive, make their franchise owner a ton of money at the same time, but when it comes to them getting to the finals or winning championships, that's a wall they have not yet passed. NBA insider Ramona Shelburne gives us some great details of what's going on over there down in Philly, especially when it pertains to the analytical god of Daryl Morey. Remember, he's almost like a godlike figure when it comes to analytics in that small section, that small Salone conference. We're going by the numbers solely type of crowd. And Daryl Morey has been their proof of concept, but he has no NBA Finals wins or appearances. So with that said, you guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Daryl Morey showed faith in Joel Embiid and James Harden before that, and Ben Simmons. You know, like sometimes as a general manager, you have to show faith in your players. You have to give them those max offers. Ownership was on board with those offers, right? Like nothing happens. No, it's not one person. I think though, when you look back at the totality of this run that they've been on, somebody has to pay the price, right? And they have not broken through. They haven't gotten to the conference finals. They haven't gotten to the finals. You had a guy who's an MVP caliber player. The James Harden thing was a mess. The moves they've made on the margins haven't worked. They went and got Paul George. That hasn't worked out.
Once again, that was another Hail Mary, but that good faith that Ramona had mentioned earlier, they always rested it in the wrong people. After that battle with Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors, the 76ers should have moved off of Ben Simmons and kept Jimmy Butler. And also current day right now, it's looking like it's the beginning of the end of Joel Embiid being that 1A player for the 76ers. And their team has to ask the tough question. Was it smart to give Joel Embiid, knowing his injury history, a major extension like that going into his mid-30s?
It's not that Daryl Morey's not a great general manager. I think he'll get another job. I think he's widely respected in the industry. I don't know if it'll be this cycle here, because when you hire Daryl Morey, you're hiring someone to run your whole franchise. It's not just a second tier guy there. Like that's like Masai Ujiri, who just got that job in Dallas. You need somebody who says, okay, we're broken, fix us.
And that's where the heavy analytical front offices come in, and they're almost a shortcut to help an owner become profitable. But it has a ceiling. We're talking about maybe a second round exit, more than likely a continuous first round exit. They're a playing team, but without a true genius basketball mind, they're always going to hit that ceiling. as later on in this segment, we're going to hear exactly what helped Bob Myers, the president of the Golden State Warriors, of just having the beautiful mind of Jerry West alongside him, stopping that organization from making a crazy mistake of getting rid of Klay Thompson too quick.
So I just think in Philly, there was just too many cumulative things that when you lose and when the things fall short, somebody pays the price. And at this time it was Daryl.
Well, and Bob Myers is involved
Yeah.
with the search. He obviously he's a guy who's a Josh Harris.
Yeah.
What would you say, employee? I don't know.
I mean, he has that title, special advisor, which
Right,
means like
for the
you're
commanders,
really
too.
smart, and I just want to have you around to do everything. So I want to say this: I don't think Bob Myers is going to be their GM. He's doing
another
this.
question. Is you've
Yeah.
heard vice presidential searches wind up where the person doing the searching
Yeah.
is the vice president.
That happened in our country.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So that won't happen.
I don't think so. I mean, I would. The only way that would happen is if they really can't find someone that everyone likes. And if Josh Harris asked Bob Myers to do that. But Bob Myers is graduated. Like, do you know what I mean? He's graduated to another level.
And I believe Bob Myers is smart enough to know that this is a losing situation with Joel Embiid just making all that money and the politics of him supposedly being the 1A guy. But again, with him serving almost as a consultant at this very moment for the 76ers, he did learn a lot from the late, great Jerry West, who's probably been one of the best front office executives in the modern era. We're talking about Showtime Lakers, Shaq and Kobe Lakers, the Golden State Warrior run. He even had a run with the Memphis Grizzlies where they were making the playoffs every single season, making a lot of noise. They even beat Chris Paul and the Clippers in the playoffs. I mean, he's had one hell of a run.
And I think this would be I hate to call it a step down, but it is from where he is right now.
Correct.
He didn't take that job as the sort of special counsel, special advisor, whatever you want to call it, to all those organizations to go back and be the general manager of the Sixers. I think he really is truly looking for a replacement. And I think that's why they finally made a move here, because you can't really do much. And so when you have somebody who's built a team that is somewhat stuck now, they're just stuck by these contracts. There's not that much you can do on the margins. They got to keep Oubre. They got to keep Quentin Grimes. They've got to keep people from a team that just got swept by the Knicks and look like they're not close. And I think, we keep saying this year after year in Philly, it's like if Joel Embiid can be healthy at the right time. And then I think they successfully pivoted to becoming Tyrese Maxey's team this year, where they're not built around Joel Embiid. They're built around Maxey. And Embiid is somebody who's there, and when he plays, he's great, but they don't count on him night in and night out, so their fortunes don't necessarily rise and fall when he can play. I think what happened in that Knicks series, I think Maxey got hurt, his pinky's messed up, and Embiid was still playing his way back into shape after not being able to play for a while after the appendicitis. Paul George was good, but the Knicks are a buzzsaw right now. They're playing great.
And let's not forget, the Knicks have been in a series with the 76ers before, with a ton of injuries. Even Mitchell Robinson ended up going out within that very same series. And the real question is, why did Jalen Brunson end up beating Joel Embiid 4-2? The excuse at the time was Joel Embiid was hurt, but in that series, for the most part, he played over 35 minutes a game. Once again, the days of Joel Embiid leading this 76ers team is virtually over. And hopefully they learn from the Ben Simmons situation of when to pivot away from a star. I'm not saying they need to get rid of him, but the pecking order needs to be readjusted.
And they just lost to a better team. And you don't have the same guy who architected a team tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
So bring somebody in with fresh eyes, bring somebody with a different perspective. I think that's what they'll do, and they'll take their time with it. But I don't see how you can move Joel Embiid's contract. His 3-year deal starts this year. It's just now starting to kick in. You might be able to move Paul George. He played well enough. He doesn't have as many years left on that deal now. Maybe. But they're somewhat stuck. And that's why you bring in somebody new to look at it with fresh eyes.
And a new set of eyes is definitely what Philadelphia needs. But in Daryl Morey's short time there, he took a lot of home run swings, including chasing down that old thing back in James Harden. But check out one of his first coaching hires, Doc Rivers, even admit that Harden's play style doesn't work after a certain level when it comes to winning. Again, keep in mind that James Harden is one of the proof of concepts alongside Daryl Morey for the analytical/Salone Conference crowd. They justify a lot of their philosophies through these names, especially that playoff series with the Houston Rockets and Golden State Warriors. But no one ever really talks about how the Warriors were completely in control of that series up 2-0. Then Andre Iguodala got injured and it completely swung it around.
It's the answer that we should all go by.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of players. You know, James is a phenomenal player.
He's in my top 50.
I still think the best part of his game he doesn't like as much as I loved.
The point guard part.
Yeah. I think he has as good a vision as anybody that I've seen next to Rondo and Chris.
Yeah.
But he can score too, and he liked to dribble. He liked to hold the ball. James doesn't give everybody else enough room to be great.
Yeah.
He is the only one that can be great on his team. You know,
he has to be the greatest.
Yeah. I don't even think it's a jealousy thing. I really don't. I just think it's the way he plays, and that's how he plays. You know, as you said, he's a system. You know, but that system to me is not the way to win. You know, I still go back. You look with James with us in Philly, the first half of the year.
Yeah.
He gave himself up to the team. He was playing unbelievable basketball, and I thought there was nobody better than us.
Yeah.
And then it kind of changed. He wanted to go back. You could see it slowly, like he was uncomfortable in that role. One of the things I did like about that sucker, though, he practiced every day. Like it's funny how people don't look at him like that. James Harden loves playing basketball.
And he's durable.
Very. I told Ty Lue that. I said, listen, you're going to need a guy that practices every day, and he's going to play 80 games. Like, there's something good about that. The bad part is, can you win with it?
Now, I'm going to shoot James Harden some bail, because when Mike D'Antoni first took over down there in Houston, he proved that he could make James Harden a winning player. The Rockets finished at the top of the conference. Year in, year out, there was a stretch where this happened. But also, James Harden's assist numbers completely skyrocketed. It was almost at the late stages of that run with the Rockets where Daryl Morey kind of took over more of what Mike D'Antoni was doing. We're mainly talking about the era where CP3 showed up, and that offense was slotted to either take 3 mid-range shots a games, and it was mostly threes and layups. That right there is not a system that Mike D'Antoni runs. He likes to use the whole court. Just take a look at his days with Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns. They used all areas of the court. And I'll link one of my earlier segments below, as by the time James Harden left Houston, almost every single player from Austin Rivers to PJ Tucker, Chris Paul, everybody complained about the system that Daryl Morey, or just the heavy analytical approach of this team. Even Mike D'Antoni walked away and resigned. That's the thing about the Salone Conference / analytical crowd. There's a high IQ, but there's a low EQ at the same time. And that's the beautiful thing about the basketball game. On a winning level, it's always going to be a team concept, and there is an artistic kind of approach to it. You got to have variation to that art form on a winning level. So now we have hit the part of the segment where the heavy analytical crowd and their feelings about Jaylen Brown has come to the light. And it's multi-layers to it, because now in a very hard cap, quote unquote, second apron league, they're measuring Jaylen Brown's impact versus his salary. But there's also going to be quite a few holes within that approach. We're going to get into it. To kick it off, listen to NBA insider Bobby Marks reveal some behind the scenes dynamics on the true feelings from that analytical crowd towards Jaylen Brown.
There's mixed feelings about him when you talk to teams. the analytics of Jaylen Brown is not good. I'm more of an eye test guy. There are some people out there that look at that a little bit more deeper than what the eye test says. I had one, not an executive, but an analytics guy saying, well, yeah, we view him as like the seventh best player on a team. I was like, holy crap.
Oh my God.
I get it. There's a role for analytics and stuff, but I guess they call it, I joked, I said, I guess we call that strategy now. We basically changed the word. People got
seventh best player on a team?
So I was like, wait a minute, that's a little bit of a stretch there.
Now, a perfect follow-up question to Bobby Marks would be, hey, how many times has that NBA team been eliminated from the play-in or did he even make it? Again, a lot of those heavy analytical front offices are mainly teams that are tanking. That's why it was so prevalent this season. They couldn't ignore the data because when they crunch the numbers in, they're not only going to see that they can get a star in the draft, pay them up until a certain point because rookies are limited on how much money they can make in the first 7 years. Then the calculation of not having that affect the second apron. And at the same time, because the organization isn't spending a lot of money, they're able to make money. That right there is a catch-22 in the NBA. If you happen to be outside of the LA and New York market, the more competitive you are from year in and year out, you're actually losing money. And Mark Cuban had elaborated on this. I also include that segment in the link in the description below. But also, here's another layer that actually makes the situation even more complicated because we're getting NBA insiders like Zach Lowe with the rise of analytics. Even he's getting offered front office jobs for a lot of these organizations because of that reason. Something that was once reserved for more basketball-minded and former players. Let's keep it real. Behind the scenes, or should I say behind the curtains of the NBA, there is always a jock versus nerds type of dynamic that's going on. We're talking about from the ownership level, front offices, even the media members when they interact with the players. There's that vibe where, hey, I'm more intelligent than you are. That's one of the main clashes we've seen it play out with Jaylen Brown. But with the rise of non-basketball minds gaining more credibility because of analytics, we're seeing them jocks for position, especially with the NBA media backing them up. Listen to a very prominent sports personality instantly give credit to Daryl Morey, even though he was already fired when this very same decision was made.
I mean, it's really weird that it's Philadelphia, but I think that's a credit to Daryl Morey, who reportedly, from what I read this morning, Morey was on the phone 3 weeks ago, a month ago. So Morey was just the most aggressive GM here. That Daryl likes transactions, and Daryl was hyper aggressive.
No, Daryl Morey they ran him off after the season. Morey was run off.
My bad.
Gansey. It was, I think Gansey's the guy who made it. Yeah.
Totally that's right.
But,
so Colin Cowherd right there with his mistake, he is the very same person that completely criticized Jaylen Brown trying to be the smartest person in the room while at the same time trying to praise some of the smartest quote unquote analytical minds in the room. It's crazy with the selective memory or just the picking and choosing. But again, because the way the NBA is set up today, having the second apron kind of being a hard cap league, if you ever notice, the NBA media does not like to say the NBA is hard capped, which it is. They just named it different. It's the second apron and first apron. But the fact that those things exist, now the very heavy analytical front offices are going to start measuring some of these stars' outputs versus their salary. And that's why we're hearing statements coming from that very same audience of Jaylen Brown being the seventh best player on a team because they're looking at those numbers. Check out Brian Windhorst right here as he perfectly explains why some of the analytical crowd is even saying Pritchard and Derek White is more valuable.
But if I had to boil it down to one paragraph, and there's a lot of nuance required here, and I realize that this is not a time for nuance because people are in their feelings about this. If I could boil it down to one paragraph, it's this. I don't believe that the league doesn't think Jaylen Brown is a very good player. Did you hear what I just said? I don't believe that the league does not believe Jaylen Brown is a very good player. What I think is the league believes he's not a $57 million player. And that is asking for a lot of comprehension because there are people who not only are defending Jaylen Brown, but defending the concept of the eye test versus analytics. Yes, there are all kinds of analytics, but in the era where there's essentially a hard salary cap, which is essentially what we have with the second apron, okay? There's a lot more stress on you performing to your level of a player. And so this is the thing. Peyton Pritchard makes $7 million. Nobody in their right mind would ever say that Peyton Pritchard is a better basketball player than Jaylen Brown. In an era where the aprons mean everything and dollars are defined, and efficiency of dollars defines your team, Peyton Pritchard is viewed as more efficient with his contract than Jaylen Brown is.
Now, right there, we also have to calculate if Jaylen Brown is not on the floor, drawing up a bunch of attention, could Pritchard even be effective at that $7 million number if he's seeing more of a double team or just more attention every time he tries to score? That's the part the analytical crowd is not looking at. What happens when it's just him and Tatum out there on the floor and there's no one else on the wings that's just drawing up a bunch of attention, especially when he drives to the hoop like Jaylen Brown?
I mean, anybody on the planet thinks that Jaylen Brown is not a significantly better player than Peyton Pritchard, okay? But when you look at one guy makes $7 million and produces this, and it results in this on the scoreboard, and one guy makes $57 million and produces this, and it results in this on the scoreboard, there's a differential there. And so that's what people are talking about when they're talking about quote unquote value. All right. And so this is where we get into big time trouble. The language that the decision makers in the league are talking about, and the people who are deciding whether to keep Jaylen Brown or trade Jaylen Brown or trade for Jaylen Brown or not trade for Jaylen Brown, they are looking at this term of value.
Now, that exact situation right there, I would say almost serves as another false boost to the value of what the analytical crowd is saying nowadays, because the owners are so cautious of the second apron, especially with the crop of new owners using private equity money, that they don't want to have to answer to them saying that, hey, we have to dip into the luxury tax, spend an additional $150 million a season as we're trying to compete. So the fact that the league now is allowing owners who don't necessarily have the money to buy these teams using private equity, the owners are now going to rely on the voices even more of that very same analytical crowd. Again, it almost serves as another false elevation of just credibility. Yes, they're right when you calculate the dollar amount so you won't hit the second apron. But at the same time, when you look at the impact on the court, it's not explaining that part. What happens when Pritchard and also Derek White, the other guy that they're saying is more valuable than Jaylen Brown, what happens when they're seeing more attention in the wings? Will it actually justify their contract? That right there is a major blind spot, and it's going to be hard for them to justify it to the NBA audience without it looking like the owner's just trying to save money, because that's really what it is.
What people are talking about when they're talking about quote unquote value. All right. And so this is where we get into big time trouble. The language that the decision makers in the league are talking about, and the people who are deciding whether to keep Jaylen Brown or trade Jaylen Brown or trade for Jaylen Brown or not trade for Jaylen Brown, they are looking at this term of value. And people who love basketball and want to watch it and don't want to get into the spreadsheets, they see Jaylen Brown and say, my God, what a valuable player. Not even valuable, most valuable player of the finals.
Right.
And we are having two different conversations using the same language. And so basically what this is a challenge is, can we understand that it's two different conversations? Right now, we cannot. And I don't know if we're going to get there, but that's where we are at. And that is where the stress is. And that is what is going to make, frankly, the storyline of Jaylen Brown next year be one of the most compelling you could possibly imagine in the league.
No question. And look, I had a primary decision maker for another team in the league say, if you make $60 million, this is what you're worth in a trade. If he made 40, every single team in the league would have been lining up for Jaylen, even with, all the other issues.
And that right there is another problem that the NBA players, especially their union, is going to have to look at. These front offices are viewing any co-star or just any player that gets paid a high salary as a net negative off rip. They're not even looking at his talent. The fact that you pay a co-star a certain price, even if he deserves it, it's a negative in the trade market because you would have to add a pick or two in order to get rid of him. So off rip, most co-stars in the league are looked at as a net negative. Matter of fact, a few players that fall into this category is Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Ja Morant. Shit, even a guy like Jamal Murray, he's valuable on the Nuggets, but other teams are going to look at him as a net negative if you're paying a co-star almost $50 million a year. You would have to add on draft picks in order to get rid of him. Jalen Duren right now out in Detroit, he's kind of going through the same thing. They're not necessarily evaluating him on his output, but it more has to do with, hey, if this doesn't work out, he's a net negative in the trade market. We would have to add picks in order to get rid of him. This exact scenario right here can only be fixed with the players union because they're going to have to get rid of these apron rules so players can go back to just being evaluated off their talent and not how much money they cost. We're in a very different NBA now, and a lot of these analytical guys behind the scenes, they're looking at the rest of the stars in the league and they're placing them into tiers according to how much they get paid. Then they look at their talent second.
And look, obviously it reached a point where, for whatever reasons, the Boston Celtics believed they needed to move on from Jaylen Brown. And whether that is, I don't even want to get into the blame game on that. But they reached that point where they believed they needed to move on from Jaylen Brown. I'm pretty sure they reached that point before they put him in an offer for Giannis. And then after that, they just had to find the best deal. I think that there's plenty of room to criticize the approach that the Celtics took in terms of they went out swinging for sky-high value. They went out trying to trade Jaylen Brown at the value of the sixth most valuable player in the league, which is what he was in the MVP voting, when the league does not perceive him to be, the league in terms of the people who are making decisions on trade, that the league does not perceive him to be the sixth most valuable person in the league, the sixth most valuable player, because in part of his contract. And then this is such a hot button issue, but the advanced analytics are not favorable to Jaylen Brown. I had another GM basically say, look.
Here we go.
Look.
Be careful. I'm just saying, be careful what you're about to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Listen, it's our job to explain things, whether we're co-signing, not co-signing, whatever. When there's something like this that confuses the hell out of basically the media, all the fans. You saw this trade, and let's be honest, the initial reaction was, what the bleep? And, this other GM says, this is a classic case of the credit goes to the guy who scores, but they're not driving team success. There's guys like this all over the league. The difference is he's not at 40 million and like a Brandon Ingram, he's at 60 million. And then look, he's rounding up, and then
he's going to be at 60 soon.
Right. And then it gets into the CBA and the cap rules and the apron. And he says, it's really hard to tie up that much money in your salary cap for one player unless they're truly generational, and he's not even close to that. I also said the league is getting smarter now, and here's the thing. The dumb teams are the cheap teams. So the Celtics weren't even in a position to try to capitalize on a quote-unquote dumb team because they're not bringing in a guy who has 180-something million over the next 3 years left on his deal and who wants an extension off of those numbers.
Once again, you're seeing right there that Jaylen Brown is not necessarily being judged off his talent. It's the fact that his talent is attached to $60 million opposed to their calculations, which should have been around 40. And I'm not going to lie, it's the NBA players' fault that they're in this situation right now. There should have never been an agreement to have these second apron and first apron rules. Now, Jaylen Brown had responded on X, and he spoke a lot of truth. Quote, nobody has won more combined regular season and playoff games since I entered the league 10 years ago. Analytics have/are ruining the game. We are playing AI hoops. Again, Jaylen Brown is coming off a season where he won 56 games while his team made moves in the offseason and at the end of the regular season to continue to tank this team. LeBron James himself has only won over 55 games only 6 times in his career, just to put that into perspective. But just like how Brian Windhorst has stated, it's almost like 2 different languages are being spoken, because the analytical crowd within these NBA front offices are now there to actually save these organizations money, so the owners don't have to go to private equity and have to answer of why they're paying a $150 million tax bill going from season to season. And the reason why I tossed out that random number of 150 mil is because that's where the Phoenix Suns were at when they had Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. If you notice, the longer Durant was there, the worse the team got. So you're locked into those type of luxury tax payments as you become even more limited on how you can improve the team. That's why this is an interesting conundrum, because the players union actually agreed to have this type of ecosystem. Now we're at the part of the segment where we're going to hear from Bob Myers, the former president of the Golden State Warriors, especially when they made their title runs in the 2010s. And he gives us great insight on how they ignored the analytics, especially when it came to Klay Thompson's value. The numbers don't always tell the whole truth. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Jaylen Brown, the Jaylen Brown trade. I mean, you're hearing.
Yeah, let's talk about
that's an enormous. It's at first hearing it's like Finals MVP. We saw him carry a team. I think one of the reasons the analytics don't like him as much as the eye test, this giant gap between how he's perceived through the eye test, and by the way, through the results, and what the advanced analytics are saying.
So I'll ask you, you both can answer, this is easy. Of those Warrior teams, guess who rated not great analytically his whole career, or all the time?
Steph.
No, he's good.
Oh, Draymond.
You say guess.
Nope.
Well, Draymond, I know what the analytics don't love.
No. He's good. And defensively, it's like
Klay?
off the charts. Klay. Think about that. Klay never rated well analytically. And tell me what kind of player Klay Thompson is.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame. We don't win without Klay Thompson. So
of course,
where you look, the thing about analytics is kind of like people go all the way too far one way, or all the way, I don't listen to analytics, or all that matters is analytics. It's neither. If you and I are having a conversation, this is where you have to look at some things and go, yeah, that says that. But by the way, I don't know how you get Finals MVP if you're not a good basketball. I don't even know.
I don't think anyone's saying he's not good.
No, I understand. Very good.
Yeah.
Like very good. And by the way, forget about, you know what you should look at Jaylen Brown and evaluate is winning.
Yeah,
that's the analytics. Winning.
Yeah.
His team's won.
Yeah, 100%.
The Celtics right now they've got one championship in the last, but you know how many times they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals?
But
they won his rookie season.
But I will say this about Jaylen Brown, and you're right. Like look, they came up short this year, but the fact that they got as far as they did, they outkicked their coverage in that sense.
Sure.
But just speculating about why Klay might have been underrated by analytics is what I said earlier about Jaylen Brown. If you were playing the Warriors before KD got there, how do you really beat them? It's almost impossible.
Right.
One of the things you could do is make Klay put the ball on the floor and make decisions with it. Not because he can't do it, but because he's not as good at that as, say, Steph Curry.
Sure.
That's not why he's there.
Right.
And sometimes, you know how they say like a little knowledge is dangerous? Sometimes a more well-rounded skill set or the guy's ability to do multiple things can be used against them when they're pressed into doing that thing. And because they can do it, they do it a little too much.
And this is the thing that
although Klay never dribbled the ball.
When you build these teams, when you build these teams, the art of it is, how do I put together a group of 5? It's people. There's 5 guys playing basketball. It's not golf. It's not.
I always said this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the genius or the art of it, or not the analytical component of it, is how do I put 5 guys on the floor where I can? There's very few players that you don't have to cover up some weakness, where you don't look at like, well, Max isn't great at this, so I got to help him in this spot. You know, there's very few guys you go, he's great at everything. That's
LeBron in his prime.
But he can guard multiple positions, he can pass, rebound, steal, everything. But most guys aren't like that. So then you go, okay, Klay Thompson, let's put him on Kyrie Irving or James Harden. Just you shut him down. If we don't have that guy, we do not win those series. Now the analytics doesn't value that as much. But winning, like we don't win without him. So What you're saying is,
But no,
yes,
the analytics do account for that. Box plus minus.
Nah,
and
but not like they look at a lot of off-ball defense, block steals, things like that. They don't value enough of I'm guarding Max and I'm just going to shut you down. They don't value
and how that
as
might
much.
have an effect on what's
Because
happening
if you're
elsewhere.
looking like if you were asking somebody like what's wrong with the analytics, they would say, well, he doesn't do this, or that, and you'd be like, okay, but he does all these other things. Sometimes the analytics overvalue certain parts.
And let's keep it a buck. A lot of the people that are in control of some of these stats or just add in all these variables, they don't even consider certain things because they never fucking played. But again, the quiet part that Bob Myers is not saying out loud, during his time being the president of the Golden State Warriors, he did have the basketball mind of the late, great Jerry West as a consultant. Golden State was ready to trade Clay at a point, and Jerry West stepped in and stopped them from making that move.
I think they've gotten pretty. You would know more than I, but better than I would. But I think in basketball, a lot of the evaluation that is not precise is that people see how deep a bag someone has, right?
Yeah.
And they assume that makes them the better player.
Right.
But it's the wisdom in terms of how you deploy, what tools you reach for and when. And the perfect example to me is Jaylen Brunson,
Right.
where like if you looked at Kyrie Irving and Jaylen Brunson, Kyrie should be a better basketball player than Jaylen Brunson. He should be. He is not. Jaylen Brunson's better than Kyrie Irving because the way he deploys his whatever he has to do is more conducive to winning. And I say that as a big Kyrie Irving fan, by the way. But we've seen it. We've seen Kyrie in situations where it didn't lead to winning.
Well, with Kyrie's definitely more skilled. But when it comes to the translation of him leading a team deep into the playoffs, into a possible finals run, Brunson would be better suited because of his play style and the way it opens things up for his teammates. But it is what it is. As you guys can see, there is a gap because of the way the players have allowed these owners to finesse them when it comes to their salaries being hard capped. They definitely left the door open for them to be evaluated outside of what they're producing on the court. If they have the leverage to get a little slight salary bump than they normally would, now that's going to be accounted against them because of the second apron rules. This fiasco is definitely multi-layered, and it's not going to just end with Jaylen Brown.
So when it comes to Anthony Edwards, him just dealing with the way the NBA is set up today, with a lot of brand new owners coming in, especially with private equity money, and they don't necessarily want to go over the luxury tax in order to keep these teams competitive. Edwards has seen his former teammate Karl-Anthony Towns previously get salary dumped onto the Knicks in order for the Timberwolves to make that transition with Alex Rodriguez and his business partner to take over the team, while at the same time, they didn't necessarily use their own money to buy the team. And right now, the politics of that have led him currently to be on the team alongside another person within his peer group, LaMelo Ball. This new star duo was very interesting because right now both players are still under the age of 25, and it has caused the Minnesota Timberwolves to be very top heavy as a team. They don't really necessarily have much of a bench. But in this segment, we're going to get into it as we're going to get some great insight on the politics, as a lot of these new owners entering the league right now are trying to maneuver and keep these teams competitive, while at the same time, a lot of the NBA fans are seeing some of their favorite and competitive teams get blown up. Look what happened in Boston. The Knicks just won a championship and kind of went through a similar phase. Their owner mentioning that the team won't go over the second apron, and they got rid of Mitchell Robinson. The Oklahoma City Thunder moved some of their key players around. We also seen the Detroit Pistons go through very tough negotiations in order to sign Jalen Duren. Again, making sure a team today remains competitive, it's a tricky dance. And Anthony Edwards' remaining time in Minnesota, it's going to be a very unique thing to see. But right here, these two NBA insiders, Brendan Haywood and Rick Buford, gave great insight on how these new ownership groups are still treading the line between being cheap and keeping these teams competitive, especially in the case of this version of the Minnesota Timberwolves. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
I think Julius Randle got scapegoated. And I think that they got to a point where they're just like, he can't get us where we want to go. I just wonder whether this is only the first step of several. I would not be surprised if Rudy Gobert is on the market. I believe they've looked at this and said, we've taken this iteration of the Minnesota Timberwolves as far as we could, and in order to keep Ant happy, they've got to bring back something that is going to be significantly different than what they've had to this point. So I believe they're getting nervous that Ant is going to start looking around.
Now, when it comes to Ant-Man, even though he is the star of the team, he currently is taking a look at the landscape and seeing a lot of other stars have trouble moving around because the way the NBA is set up with these second aprons, and it's very difficult for a lot of these teams to make transactions for players at his price point. So his mobility, like in the previous era of the NBA with the player movement, it's not necessarily looking the same.
And they need to make some changes in order to convince him we have a plan. We know that the blueprint, hey, we gave it a shot with this, didn't work. No, you're unhappy that Karl Anthony Towns went to New York and won a ring. We're going to make some moves in order to do something different here. I think that I think the pressure is on Minnesota right now to demonstrate to Anthony Edwards that they can be a better team, and sooner rather than later.
They definitely have some things to do to prove to Ant, or else you could be looking at him being the next mega superstar on the move. I don't think Julius Randle got scapegoated. I don't think that's what this trade is all about. This trade is about, once again, this was a salary dump. This is a second apron type trade. There's a lot of teams that their ownership groups will tell the front office. I know the Minnesota front office. I know Tim Connelly personally, right?
Yeah.
He's not trading Julius Randle like this unless there's something coming from up top that's like, yo, we are not going to be a tax-paying team again for Julius Randle.
Now, this is one of the main issues with the Minnesota Timberwolves just getting those new owners with Alex Rodriguez and his business partner, I believe Mark Lowry is his name. Those guys clearly did not have enough money on their own to get that team. They got a lot of people to come on board in order to initiate that transaction. And for those of you that are watching the visual version, if you compare what the Minnesota Timberwolves are paying right now with LaMelo Ball being on the team versus Karl Anthony Towns when he was there, with them just being at over $218 million in total salary versus 202 current day. Not only there's a difference of about $20 million, but also the T-Wolves right now are still under that second apron, especially with getting rid of Julius Randle and Naz Reid. But at the same time, just for that $20 million difference, the way Karl Anthony Towns spaced the floor for that team, you gotta wonder, you made the Western Conference Finals. Why not run it back one more time? Karl Anthony Towns has a lot of value throughout the NBA, even if they end up losing the following season after making that Western Conference Finals. You could easily get rid of him because most teams are looking for a stretch five that possess the skills that he has. Again, you gotta wonder how Anthony Edwards is assessing everything that's going on, because he's seeing from year to year his team is fully being broken down, and the T-Wolves' new ownership definitely have gone the cheaper route. They even went as far as to firing a bunch of people that were in staff working in the stadium. Shit, the writing is clearly on the wall, but you gotta wonder how patient Anthony Edwards is gonna be going forward.
Like, if you think about it, they had to attach a pick just to get somebody. That means you're a negative value player. When they gotta attach a pick just to get a team to take you, like, yeah, you gotta give. Hey, we gotta give up the number 28 pick. That says to me this was a cap-shedding move. And if you really, really follow it, let's just look at the timeline. Because most people will just look at the deal at face value. Here on Behind the Scenes, we like to peel back the layers on the onion. You draft Karl Anthony Towns #1 however many years ago. He turns into an all-star player for you. You team him up with Anthony Edwards and things are looking bright. You say, okay, well, he's going to get paid X, Y, and Z. We don't want to have to pay that money. Once again, another salary type move.
Without question.
And they trade for Julius Randle. Julius Randle doesn't quite fit as well as Karl Anthony Towns.
The timeline is important, though, because they were in the process of selling the team. And so you always want to try to keep your books right to make the team more attractive for the next buyer.
And unfortunately, because this kind of hurt the team building process of the T-Wolves, the process of the new ownership group taking over, it was a long time. And we're talking about a lawsuit going back as far as 2021, and then about 3 seasons have gone by. Remember, Mark Laurie and Alex Rodriguez were trying to get the 2021 price point of the Minnesota Timberwolves, which was for about $1 billion, almost $2 billion. And then by the time they actually got the team, the evaluation actually almost doubled. It's kind of crazy when you really think about it, because even at the 2021 price, they still didn't have enough money to buy the team. But again, in this current NBA landscape, we're seeing the true motives of a lot of these franchises after they trade the initial star. The T-Wolves got Julius Randle, and then they ended up trading him away for nothing. The same way the Dallas Mavericks traded away Luka for Anthony Davis and basically gave AD away for nothing. That right there lets you know the whole time this was a money-shedding move.
And that's the thing. They've been making salary moves, not necessarily NBA moves, for their last couple of deals. The reason why I told you they took Karl Anthony Towns #1, and he became an all-NBA player and an all-star and a key part of a team that went to the Western Conference Finals. Well, when you trade him for Julius Randle, and then you trade Julius Randle for the number 33 pick, when I follow that timeline in reverse, you're telling me the #1 pick turned into the number 33 pick? You're telling me a Karl Anthony Towns trade 2 years later only netted you the number 33 pick?
The Dallas Mavericks fans can ask themselves the same thing. What did the Luka trade turn into after they got AD? He basically went to the Wizards for nothing.
Hey man, hey now, say now, what is going on? I know Tim Conley. He don't want to make no move like this. Sometimes front offices, the move comes from up top. Hey, I need you to do this because we need you to shed salary. Karl Anthony Towns was traded because they needed to get their books right. Julius Randle was traded because they didn't want to be a second apron team.
Now right there, when Brendan Hayward had mentioned the decisions are coming from up top, in today's NBA, it's not necessarily even the owner. It's coming from even above him, which is the private equity or some of the other monetary resources they use to buy these teams at these crazy price points. The Lakers' current owner also used Saudi money, and I believe the person who purchased the Boston Celtics, he had a major oil or just kind of real estate group provide him with the funds to buy the Celtics. This dynamic right here is something brand new that the league has never seen before. And just in a few seasons, we've seen the repercussions. Look how Jaylen Brown was quickly tossed out after leading a team that was purposely tanking to a 56-win season. Keeping these teams competitive, going into the luxury tax year in and year out, the actual owner now has to answer to these groups. Why are they doing this when they still owe them money?
This was not about a scapegoat decision. This was a financial decision, and they figured the best way to move on would be to move Julius Randle.
It can be both things. It can
Two things can be true. You know, that's a statement that I love.
Yes, because I believe that a part of this was Ant wasn't in love with playing with Julius moving forward. Like he saw that, right? I mean, it's not like he doesn't like the dude. It's just like, that's not going to get us there. And I would say that Chris Finch wasn't in love with the idea of trying to manage Julius Randle, just in terms of what they got. So, but I agree with you. It was a money move in this, and it was from ownership in the same way that acquiring Rudy Gobert was an ownership move. It was the previous owners. They liked the idea of going back to the Kevin Garnett model of, I don't know if we can win a championship with Rudy Gobert, but Rudy Gobert gets the Utah Jazz to the playoffs the Utah Jazz have gone to the playoffs every single year that they've had Rudy Gobert. The idea that they could have a big, and that would automatically guarantee them getting to the postseason every year, was why why ownership signed off on expending everything they did to get him.
Now that right there is something that some of these private equity firms or just whoever's helping these ownership groups buy these teams, they love this exact situation. Just guaranteeing that these teams could get into the playoffs, we could sell more tickets, more merchandise. Just remain competitive enough so the money could keep flowing in, but we don't need to go over the top and dive deep into luxury tax payments while the actual owner still owes these groups money. There's a few teams in the NBA that already let it be known that this is their business model. The Indiana Pacers, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Clippers used to be this way with their previous owner. I believe the one that got kicked out the league. He never cared about competing at all. He just wanted the team to be decent enough so the cash flow could just keep coming in. Us NBA fans today are about to see this be more apparent, more in our faces than we ever seen before.
Now, it's short-sighted because you're like, okay, well, he can get you to the playoffs, but he's not going to get you, he and Donovan Mitchell weren't getting Utah much more than to the playoffs. You can have a great regular season, and that's all that Minnesota was looking to get out of the deal. If they really wanted just to move, then they would have been looking at Rudy Gobert being the first guy out the door. And I think he still could be. But you're right. The other part we have to look at is we got Alex Rodriguez as the face of the new group. And what did you just say? There's owners who have a ton of money, and then you have athletes who've been paid well, but the two are not in the same stratosphere. Like, we think of Alex Rodriguez, we think of that face, like we think of LeBron James being the face of some team buying a franchise. They're not the deep pocket guys. Like, you got to have the white whales coming with you. They're just the face. Same with Magic Johnson for all the success that he's had. Like, he got a little tiny piece of the Dodgers, right? So that's where Rodriguez and the new group coming in, I don't know that they can be any more or any less frugal than the previous ownership was, because you have a franchise in Minnesota.
Now, the previous owner of the Timberwolves, I believe he only went over the luxury tax payments one time in his whole history of just having that team. Again, these are interesting times for Anthony Edwards because he has to maneuver through all this. And the days of player movement are long gone, because trading someone away at his price point, it's very difficult.
Like, that's just the reality of, look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. The only difference between the two is you got Sam Presti, who is one step, maybe two steps ahead of everybody else. So he's moving a Wiggins out and getting the room and not having to undermine the overall build of his team in order to stay right with the cap, and yet he's still able to be competitive.
Right. You talk about moving Rudy Gobert. I think it's possible. Anybody can be moved in this economy, but it just comes down to, what are you going to get back?
Yep. That is the tricky part here.
Because what has been proven is that Rudy Gobert is incredible for helping you stabilize your regular season defense. Mm-hmm. But in the playoffs, this year he did quite well, but still, normally what happens is what he does in the regular season gets exploited in the playoffs.
Yep.
So I'm not sure how many teams really want to take on that salary. What are you going to get back for Rudy Gobert? More importantly, we got to bring it back to Ant-Man. When you trade Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, and then you trade Julius Randle, all you get back is the number 33 pick. Ant-Man's not dumb. He knows you just made my life harder. Whether he loves Julius Randle or not, you took a piece off this team that was able to score 20-plus points per game, and we can run offense through. We lost Nickeil Walker-Alexander the year before that. We did the Karl Anthony Towns trade. Now he's a champion in New York, and I'm not.
And also, with them trading Karl Anthony Towns away, they got Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, where the spacing is not the same. Those guys both operate in the paint, and it has made life for Anthony Edwards a lot more difficult on the offensive end.
Like, he's keeping score. You move Julius Randle and don't bring the right pieces back, Ant-Man's going to be the guy that's demanding the trade like Giannis did.
Yep.
And Minnesota got to know that. They got to feel it. If I can see it, it's on the horizon. I know they can see it. So Minnesota right now, what they're doing over the next year and some change is pivotal, because as San Antonio continues to improve with their young guys, OKC still going to be OKC. I think with Denver's healthy, Denver's still going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Also, the Houston Rockets, as well as the San Antonio Spurs and the Thunder, all three of those teams, they have the draft picks of the Dallas Mavericks for the next 3 years. All swaps. That right there is really one of the biggest elephants in the room, because the Mavericks were supposed to be a competitive team, and that Luka trade really threw a lot of things off balance.
As these teams just continue to evolve, if you're not evolving, you're getting left behind. And if Ant-Man senses that, we could be looking at him in a year and a half saying, yo, man, Minnesota, I gave you what I gave you, but I'm ready to move on.
Also, here's another interesting dilemma with LaMelo Ball. The Charlotte Hornets low-key made a good move in trading him right now, because he had a trade kicker for about $1.5 million. Now, if you start trading him after this season, his bonus because of that trade is going to be over $13 to $14 million a year. If this star duo does not work out, the T-Wolves, oh man, they may have a lot of second thoughts, with ownership already being cheap, of trading away LaMelo Ball.
Yep. No, I agree. I also believe that these new rules, these stringent rules, the one thing I was questioning is, why are all these teams coming up for sale? Now, some cases, Portland, it was Paul Allen dying and Jody Allen never really wanting to run the team. She was just looking to sell it. But I still wondered, why is Mark Cuban getting out? Why is Mark Lazary leaving the Milwaukee Bucks? And there's various elements behind the scenes that contributed to it.
But if you look at the pattern for all those owners that were just mentioned, they all sold the teams right before their superstars had a mega supermax contract extension coming up. Giannis, Luka, the list goes on and on and on.
But a big part of it is these new rules make it less fun to play with this team. You either paying exorbitant tax, it's costly, and it's not as much fun because your hands are tied. You can't just buy your way to a championship, which is like the Steve Ballmers come in and they're like, hey, I got deep pockets. Let me see if I can go buy my way to a championship. And the new rules don't allow it, and they got enough money to go do other things, so they're like, maybe this isn't the thing for me.
Yeah, the new rules make it harder, even when you win. Look at what the Knicks right now have won a championship. They're already trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to bring this guy back? How are we going to get Karl Anthony Towns re-signed? Okay, who's got to move on? This ain't like...
No, they're thinking about who we have to let go.
Exactly. This ain't like when you look at when the Boston Celtics, hey, man, they realize, hey, man, we got to let Porzingis go. We got to let Drew Holiday go. OKC is right now trying to figure out, okay, we know Cason Wallace is not coming up this year. We're going to have to pay him next year. What are we going to do with Lou Dort? I think Hartenstein has a player option. We probably want to keep him, but what are we going to do after that? They're trying to figure. These teams are really now trying to figure out in real time how to move, basically how to have something in place when they have to move off of guys that they've already put a lot of time and money into because they can't afford to keep them.
Yeah. Someone told me when it came to the Thunder, which makes perfect sense from what I know about Sam Presti, is that Sam has always told guys, look, you may not stay here.
I'm gonna get you paid.
But I'm gonna get you paid.
That's how you motivate a young guy. You tell him, listen, I know you might turn on the TV and you see your boy over there playing 30 minutes a night and you only gonna get 15, but we gonna win. And when it's time for me to extend you, I'm gonna pay you because I know you're supposed to be getting the 30 minutes. Now, you might not stay here. I can't guarantee you're gonna be here for 8 years, but I'm gonna pay you. And that's one thing that Sam Presti has told his young team. And to a man, almost everybody has gotten paid. Lou Dort got paid. Chet got paid. J-Dub got paid. SGA got paid. You know what I'm saying? Now, we don't know if they're going to stay there. In the next couple, as that tax bill gets higher, certain guys are going to get shipped out. Certain young guys like A.J. Mitchell that are on rookie deals are going to get, their roles are going to get propped up more. That's the business now. The business now, what these playoffs and what this free agency and what these early trades are telling me is the best GMs understand how to be a year to 2 years ahead of this new luxury tax, this new tax threshold. Because when you got a guy that's making this, you need to have another young guy that's coming up where you can be like, you know what? Thank you. We love what you were able to do, but we're not going to pay you $30 million. We're going to move on from you, and we have a young guy that has 2 more years on his rookie deal that's ready to step in. That's the move. That's what you got to be. And right now, Minnesota's trying to figure that out on the fly.
And I'm not going to lie, the T-Wolves, it's not a bad start because that contract they put AO under for about $20 million a year to about 25, that's a pretty good deal. And low-key, that's a move the Lakers should have made, trading for him and extending him for that price point, putting him alongside Luka. That would have been a perfect fit. But kudos to the T-Wolves. That was a great move.
Again, when I look at the Western Conference, I look at what they're trying. This really feels like we got to do something to keep Ann happy. And almost like Carmelo Anthony in Denver when they went and got Allen Iverson. Oh, let's go get it. He hasn't had a chance to play with a bona fide star. Let's go get him a guy that he can connect with and all of that. And you looked at it and you go, okay, in a fantasy league, that might work. On paper, that might work. In reality, I don't know if that's going to work. I'm not in love. I understand why they did it. They needed a playmaker. We've talked about that, right? They desperately needed another playmaker. I just don't know that this is the playmaker that I would go get. And giving up Naz Reid for it, I think only compounds the potential trouble that you've created for yourself.
Whenever I see a deal or a trade or a draft pick, when I look at a team, I have the end in mind. How are teams going to attack this team? Yeah. And the first thing you said was, hey, Rudy, LaMelo, pick and roll. All I'm going to say is this. You're going to have, let me see, how much does Rudy make? About 40, 50?
Yeah, I looked it up. Yes, 40, because LaMelo, I think, makes 36.
Okay, but he's going to make 40 at some point. It's 40
Yes.
So let's just make it like this right here.
80 million.
We're going to take $80 million worth of player, and we're going to, and in a playoff series, we're going to put them in a pick and roll and run them off the court and make them useless. That is going to be a problem, okay? When I can look at $80 million worth of talent, and I can tell you in June how I'm going to beat you in next June if you make it that far. I know exactly put LaMelo in the mid pick and roll. He's gonna die on the screen. Rudy's gonna be back in the lane. And if we got a guard that can boogie, it's gonna be a wrap. Like, can you imagine Shea? Listen, if OKC plays Minnesota, they're gonna run a switch. They're gonna run a pick and roll, have Jaden McDaniels switch off of Shea. Shea's gonna then get Melo on him, and he's either gonna ISO or he's gonna call for a pick and roll, and it's gonna be Rudy in a drop, and it's gonna be buckets. This is problematic. Yeah. And then guess what? They still got to get somebody replaced. I don't know who's the power forward. They still got to go out there and maybe they find Rui Hachimura. They got to find whoever the best free agent power forward is that don't cost a lot of money, and they kind of need that guy to defend and make shots. And power forwards that defend and make shots kind of cost a lot of money. Yep. I'm with you, and I love Tim Connolly's my dog. That's my guy, but I don't love this build.
Yeah, this team does have a lot of questions, especially at the forward position, and you don't want to necessarily move Jaden McDaniels over to the 4, perhaps exposing him to just bigger players and getting injured throughout the season. I know they're always saying that this is a positionless league, but that small ball era of the NBA has already ended, and the Timberwolves are going to have to find someone to fill at the 4, an official power forward, by the way. And another good thing is that the Timberwolves actually have a great ball handler with LaMelo Ball just to alleviate Anthony Edwards of those duties. And now he can just completely play his position. The role of today's point guard in the NBA is kind of tricky because there's a lot of guys who can play the position, like Cade Cunningham, Jason Tatum, Jalen Johnson down there in Atlanta, Paolo Banchero in Orlando. You can even look at Anthony Edwards last season in Minnesota, but just because you could play point guard doesn't necessarily mean you should be doing that. And getting deeper into the playoffs, a lot of these guys are hitting a ceiling making that attempt. So far, Jalen Brunson and SGA are really the only 2 who are not necessarily traditional point guards or even point guards, period. But they found a winning formula to get the job done. And it all really starts from their decision making in the mid-range, particularly around that high post area. Once again, in this whole positionless era of the NBA, there's going to be a lot of victims. Let me include Donovan Mitchell into that list. He's another player that's hitting a ceiling in the playoffs with this whole combo kind of, I'm a point guard sometimes, but I'm really not. This whole positionless basketball, most of the players are hitting a ceiling in the playoffs. It took Jason Tatum quite a long time and for the Celtics to actually set him up with a lot of players who could play make for themselves and be able to catch and shoot from three. They had Drew Holiday, Derek White, Porzingis, Al Horford. That team basically had every position on the court covered when it comes to three-point shooting or making decisions while attacking closeouts. So Tatum was able to finally thrive and get over the hump when his team was set up that way. Next season for Tatum is going to be very interesting because I believe he's in the same position Anthony Edwards was in last season. And we're going to see if they begin to hit a wall on how high of a level that they can get up to while being the de facto decision maker, a guy that's constantly on ball. There's a lot of politics in the league, especially coming from the ownership group, not necessarily in full control and having to answer to private equity and some Saudi money or whatever entities they used in order to put the money together to buy these teams. The NBA today have a lot of owners who don't necessarily have deep enough pockets to afford the team. They kind of make the announcements that they're going to get the team. Then they go out and collaborate with a bunch of other entities in order to come up with the money. We're definitely in interesting times. And for Ant-Man, the rest of his saga in Minnesota with LaMelo Ball, aka Mr. Play-In, is going to be very interesting. So back in 2020, the whole world went through a pandemic, and the NBA was pretty much the catalyst of just being that league that kind of had to shut down. And we've seen a domino effect kind of happen in every other facet of society. But one of the key triggers that kind of put everyone on notice is a situation with Rudy Gobert getting COVID. Even though I do believe low-key, Stephen Curry was the first player to have it. Just look at his injury report a few weeks earlier. It'll tell you everything you need to know. But right here in this segment, Fred VanVleet gives great insight to kind of feeling guilty about being reckless when players were warned as they were going from city to city to kind of proceed with precaution. The Raptors at the time had a West Coast trip, and in their stop in Golden State, which was pretty much ground zero for people coming down with the virus, Fred VanVleet right here gives great insight into how the team was a little bit too reckless, and it ended up putting other players in situations by the time they hit their next game on the road against Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Somebody like Rudy
Gobert.
Yeah.
But if and it shouldn't be like this, but if Rudy was my complexion, had a dunk and a half every game, people look at him different.
For sure.
And it shouldn't be like that.
For sure.
Right?
No,
People look at him as the guy who cried and the guy who gave him every month for COVID.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was us too. That was us.
Shut up.
That was us. Swear to God, that was us.
Touch the mic.
Yeah, that was us.
Shut up. Shut
bro,
up.
Listen, bro.
Shut up,
That was
bro.
us. I swear to God, that was us. We go on a West Coast trip. San Fran, some sack, boom, we finished with Utah. We flying West Coast. Yo, y'all get y'all masks, y'all gloves. Man, what? Mask, gloves? What y'all talking about? Man, it's something going around San Francisco. Don't nobody know what it is, but it's serious. Don't leave the hotel. Man, whatever. Serge get on the plane. Serge got mask and gloves on.
So Serge.
Serge got gloves and mask
Shout
on.
out Serge.
So we laughing at him. Look at Serge. The glove break. He playing. The glove break. He playing. We like, we don't know what's going on. We go to San Fran. Of course, we ain't listen to that. We outside.
All right.
Boom, boom, boom. We go to Utah.
Damn, San Fran was ground zero for that shit. That is reckless. But yo, that is reckless. But before Fred gets into it, I'm going to replay it one more time because that was some Chicago shit Pat Bev said about Rudy Gobert. He's only remembered for crying and fucking COVID. That is hilarious.
He just don't pass the eye test.
You don't pass the eye test. You can shake Rudy.
You feel me? But if you and it shouldn't be like this, but if Rudy was my complexion, had a dunk and a half every game, people look at him different.
For sure.
And it shouldn't be like that.
For sure.
Right?
No,
people
that's
look at him as the guy who cried and the guy who gave air for COVID.
Yo, Pat Bev be talking like it's just me and you in the room. Oh, man. He's an interesting character in this whole NBA podcasting space, I should say. But let's get back to Fred telling his side of the story.
On the plane, Serge got mask and gloves on.
So Serge.
Serge got gloves and mask
Shout
on.
out Serge.
So we laughing at him. Look at Serge. The glove break. He playing. The glove break. He playing. We like, we don't know what's going on. We go to San Fran. Of course, we ain't listen to that. We outside.
All right.
Boom, boom, boom. We go to Utah. Mind you, it's scuffles. OG getting a scuffle with Rudy. Serge getting a scuffle with Rudy. They bite the ball. You know all the goofy shit.
Right. Fuck back there. Right. All the dumb shit.
They do all that. So Rudy do the goofy shit after the game. We go back. Say this like a Monday. We go back. We got a day. We got a foundation event the next day. We in a foundation event. We chilling. I go to the bathroom. I come back. It's dead quiet. Damn, who died? Somebody give me the phone. Yo, season over with. Canceled. What? Yeah, Rudy Gobert got COVID. We start going crazy. They start replaying. Who touched him?
Who touched him?
They gotta go down the list. It's Serge, it's OG, whoever. It's a list. I don't think I played that game or something. I don't remember. But they go down the list. Who touched them? Who did this, that, and
That's
third?
hard.
So
that is not hard.
We in Canada. Yeah, that's
so
we
not
in
hard.
Canada, which is like the worst for COVID.
Clean zone,
bro. We go home. They send everybody home. Mind you, I'm like, season over. I'm ready to pack up. I'm ready to come back to the crib. Like, I'm already off this shit. They about to close the border. I'm like, what the fuck that mean? I'm thinking of some movie shit. Like, they about to stand at the border with guns and shit. So we about to drive in the middle of the night. They like, yo, report to the hospital. We go to the hospital. They got a tents in the parking lot outside the hospital. Tents, hazmat tents, like the movie Quarantine.
That's wild.
The whole organization walk in. You got to go in. The doctors in full hazmat suits, full suits.
Now keep in mind, Canada was not fucking around when it came to that. Here in the States, things were a little bit relaxed. They let the NBA know the following season, they were not having the Raptors travel back and forth with the loosey-goosey kind of attitude most Americans had when it came to the whole C-19 situation. The team ended up playing in Miami for, I believe, the whole 2021 season. That's how serious Canada was. They was like, fuck getting that NBA money. You can have all your home games in Miami.
We like, what the fuck? So we trying to like joke about it, but we really like, man, what the fuck going on? You remember that time when nobody knew what it was?
No. Like that, y'all got this before anybody.
We got it first. So we go do that. This the test. This the long swab test, the one that go all the way up.
Yeah.
So we go into the little tent. The doctor show, boom, boom. Oh shit. Go home.
Damn. They gave him that test where it goes all the way up your nose, touching your fucking brain. I don't know what. That's a mess. But again, the situation was serious because even Karl Anthony Towns, he lost 8 family members. And unfortunately for him, he lost his mother also. And his last moments with his mother, he was in a hazmat suit, unfortunately about to unplug her from the respirator machine. So very unfortunate.
They like, stay by your phone. We'll let you know when your test come back. I'm so fucking scary. I make myself sick. I send the family upstairs. I'm in the basement in the bed. I got the chills. I'm throwing up. I'm thinking I got this shit. I done made myself sick, bro. I had a fucking full-blown anxiety attack. My dumb ass had to quarantine 3 more days because I had symptoms. But I didn't have COVID.
Wow.
As soon as that shit was up, man, I packed my family up. We drove from Toronto. We drove back to Rockford, bro. And then next thing you know, shit, 3 months later, we was in the bubble. So that Rudy shit was always funny to me because it was like, why you playing, bro? Like, you playing and it was
didn't
you.
even know.
And I think it was them and OKC. I remember the OKC game was about to start. Somebody was about to play OKC, and that was the game. COVID to the bubble, all that shit, man. What a crazy time.
Good times.
Bro, crazy ass time. And we had a good ass team that year too. That was the year after the chip.
Yeah, it was the year after the chip.
Yeah, truly crazy times. And as an NBA community, we lost Kobe just a few weeks before that. I gotta say, the NBA went through a roller coaster ride that year. So with the top of the Eastern Conference clearly going through a shakeup and rivals making trades with one another, in this segment right here, we're going to touch base on a great discussion involving quite a few different dynamics around this trade, just getting in between the lines. How would Jason Tatum look as a number one option post-injury? Also, why did the Jaylen Brown trade seem a little bit rushed? Did he put a lot of pressure on the Boston Celtics to be that number one guy? Speaking of number one guys, Joel Embiid's time in Philly as that 1A option, has it come to an end? With his injury issues and the 76ers don't necessarily have a deep bench, you gotta wonder if Jaylen Brown joining the team is signifying the end of the trust the process Joel Embiid era out in Philly. Raymond Felton, Theo Penson, and Charlie Villanova gave great insight from a player's perspective on a few of these situations. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
We know Brad Stevens has proven us to be a very good GM. The real question of this is, was there not a better offer out there? If there was a better offer out there, why would Brad Stevens not take it?
It lets me believe that there wasn't a better offer out there.
Well,
just know JB did not want to be traded. To me, I want to ask a question, why did they trade him?
But you know why they traded him.
I got context.
But we'll talk about it, though. But my fault.
VJ.
So
they wanted VJ.
They didn't want to give him the 145 over 2 years because that was his next extension, which is due next year. So 145 over 2 years.
Who, JB?
Yeah. Twitch streams really bothered them.
Jesus Christ.
And the fact that he felt the claim to be viewed as Jason Tatum's equal in the basketball rubbed the Celtics the wrong way.
Take it down, Kurt.
And then Derek White, they perceived Derek White had a better year than Jaylen Brown, which is insane.
Bro, I think all
shit.
that is bullshit.
Facts. All that is bullshit. The elephant in the room that the players know, the owners did not want to keep paying into the luxury tax. Once again, the new Celtics owner, he used a lot of private equity and just outside money in order to purchase the team, and he has to explain to them why every single season they're set up to be paying over $100 million in luxury tax payments.
There's no way that came out somebody's mouth that they think Derek White had a better.
Yeah, who
no,
said
that doesn't even sound.
Derek White
if someone said that,
Derek White struggles last year.
I know.
That reporting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If someone out there, there's no one in their right mind that said Derek White had a better year than Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
More than likely, the person that tried to justify Derek White being a better player, they're talking about his output versus his salary, like the value that it has to a franchise. Because right now, the NBA, the way it's set up, that's how a lot of these brand new ownership groups are looking at the players. Their output versus their salary. They're not necessarily even looking at their talent. It's the same way for anyone that has played daily fantasy. You're trying to purchase a player at a price point where you believe he's actually set up to achieve higher than what you're paying for. You're not necessarily looking at the person's talent. You're looking at their output versus how much they're getting paid. And that's how the NBA today is set up.
There's no way.
There's zero chance.
But listen, let's
Derek White had the worst season shooting he's had.
Yeah.
From three.
Yeah. So let's be honest here, though. JB never came out and said he wanted to be traded.
Yeah.
But JB was doing a lot of stuff.
A lot of barking.
A lot of things to put out there like, I want to either move on or give me the keys.
And we touch base on quite a few of these dynamics right here because Jaylen Brown has been disrespected ever since he's arrived in the building in Boston. They had him coming off the bench early in his career when Gordon Hayward and Kyrie had arrived. His name was consistently being thrown out there to get traded for Anthony Davis. He made the NBA Finals in 2022, and his name was still being tossed out there for Kevin Durant. And now, not only after winning the Eastern Conference Finals, as well as the NBA Finals MVP, he was in a season in which the Celtics were considered to be possibly one of the tanking teams, and he led them to 56 wins. And it still wasn't enough. His name was still being tossed out there in order to get Giannis.
So what the fuck does he have to do to get some sort of validation and just security from his organization?
Like, this is known. Like, come on, we all basketball players here. We've all been in situations where we may not come out and say something because professionally we know what we have to do, but we move in a certain manner to let it be known, like, I'm over this place or I want to be gone. So yes, he never came out publicly and said he wanted to leave, but let's be honest, JB wanted to get out of there. He wanted to be traded. Let's be real. And if you look at this situation, I think Philly at some point gonna have to move on from Embiid.
They load managed him all last season. Matter of fact, they talked about load managing him the previous season. And with that contract he's still locked into, we can already see the writing is on the wall. He's not going to be able to live up to that because of his health. Also, it's the way they lost to the Knicks. Just getting blown out like that. Philly got put on notice that they're not even close to where they need to be in order to win a championship.
So now you're going to build your future around Maxey and JB.
Oh, VJ. Don't forget VJ.
And
VJ. He's in the long term.
They want to let VJ go because that was smart by Boston. Boston really wanted VJ, but the money didn't match. VJ's still on a rookie deal.
Try to get both.
So the money didn't match.
They try to get both.
They try to get him and Paul?
Their first.
They weren't going to give up both of them.
They
God,
started
man.
at both of them plus 5 picks, and this is where they landed.
Boston might have handed them the fucking the chip.
Guys, no, they didn't, bro.
Analytically is where that came from.
Embiid is healthy.
They still need a bench, CV. They're going to be good.
Boston season still going to be good.
They're going to be really good.
Are we sure about that? Tatum is coming off that injury, and we got to really ask ourselves, had Jaylen Brown been the one that was hurt last season, and Tatum was leading the way with the very same team, the same moves the Celtics were making during this season when they got rid of guys, they got that Vooch contract that was expiring, they were still tanking while the Celtics were winning 56 games with Jaylen Brown. Could Tatum had done the same? That's the real question that we should all be asking ourselves.
I don't know what Paul George is getting terrible flack right now. I don't think he's getting cooked for like he's getting OD strays.
Why?
Because he's JB's replacement.
He was traded for JB.
I don't think it's the replacement though, guys.
It's like
I don't think I don't think no, but I don't think this is the replacement though.
People keep forgetting
this isn't the
good
replacement.
This man is though.
I know, but as a fan, that's your replacement.
I hear you, but we know that's not his replacement. This move was not for Paul George. I think that I just can't. I'm gonna just be real with you. I don't see. Do you believe Brad Stevens made this move because we believe it is Paul George is our answer? I think it's purely because of money.
I think it's purely because of money, but also you able to get somebody who can still help your team win. Paul George is still a good basketball player. When he came back off this suspension, Paul George had great numbers. He hooped.
Fucked the Celtics up.
Well, he hooped. So I don't even understand where the strays
What was
is
his
coming
average when he came back from
I can check.
injury?
I don't even understand where the strays are coming from. This man is
he's a good player.
He's a great basketball player.
Well, Paul George was hooping right before that suspension for what I believe was banned substances. And before that, we haven't really seen him be as healthy. And if he was really hooping, why did the 76ers get blown out as bad as they did against the Knicks? And this is a good question right here with Raymond Felton. What is his numbers after he came back from that suspension?
Yeah, granted, he ain't the future for Boston. We get that. We know that.
Correct.
But for right now,
and the thing is,
he's
Ray,
good.
But Ray, the thing is too, people are like, I get it. It's not going to be the sexy thing to be Paul. Yes, you go from Giannis to Paul George right now, it looks bad. But you could get Paul George, and then next year you could have Paul take less money, and look at the money they're going to have to get a guy to play alongside Jason Tatum, and then you're able to keep Paul George for the low. Like that has to be the thinking, and you got to hope Paul George is willing to do that, which I think he will, because how much money has Paul George made?
Yeah, he'll do it.
You see what I'm saying?
I would say, Theo, I don't know if it's a CBA move. I think the Celtics are just generally trying to get off.
Does the CBA not matter?
It matters, bro. I think they're really just trying to move on from him.
Though. Yes, you have to get off.
I think that was a big part. Is they just want to move him out of the organization. I think
that's
that was
part
one of
of
the
it too,
biggest.
because he was doing a lot.
No,
But also, you
1000%.
get off that money though. You get off that $300 million.
But you're able to get off of that because Paul George is involved.
But the moves show us that they were comfortable having that in two players because they tried to make the move for Giannis. Like they weren't just trying. It wasn't a money-saving move. It was that.
It wasn't a money-saving. It probably turned into that.
It turned into that because that's how they got off of it. But before that, they were trying to keep another player at that caliber, and at that price.
1000%.
So my point to you is that they were just trying to get off of it.
But you're proving his point because
once that ship has sailed,
once
the ship has sailed, there's no bringing that back in. You're not willing JB back in to be bought in on the Boston Celtics. Okay, bet. We have to worry about the next guy we can bring in here that can be a star.
And I believe that was one of the realities Brad Stevens was facing. And also, once again, the history that the Celtics had with Jaylen Brown, just not valuing him from the start, it came back to haunt them.
Because JB's is guaranteed.
A star.
They can get another star is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Paul George will not be your next star.
I think they was willing to pay Giannis.
Yes.
Big money. So that the money didn't matter then. They was okay with getting that because you trading JB for Giannis. It's like, okay, we still good.
It sounds good on paper, but Giannis has proven with Dame that he still likes to have the ball in his hands. And we haven't necessarily seen Tatum move off ball. It would have been quite interesting to see how the Celtics coaching staff would have handled Giannis being with Tatum. That fit alongside just their philosophy with the three-point shooting, I'm not sure how that would have worked out.
You trading JB for Giannis. It's like, okay, we still good.
Yeah.
We got 2 stars. Now you bringing in a guy like Paul George, who used to be a star. He on his way out. He's at the end of his career, but he's still serviceable. He still can hoop. He still can give you 20 a game. Healthy, he can still give you 20.
Are we sure about that? PG, when healthy, he can give you 20 a game? What, maybe for like 54 games a season?
But he's not your future. So cool. And he's an expiring contract. So you can keep a guy like him, because we all know Boston love to keep guys who can defend, who can play make, who can shoot. Paul George can still do all those things. But now you can got more, like he's saying, more room to go land another big fish.
Do they really have room? For those of you that are watching the visual version, Paul George is making almost the same amount of money as Jaylen Brown, but he has a player option for 27-28. Maybe the Celtics have in mind to extend him at a lower amount. It's possible. But current day, for them to land another big fish, they don't necessarily have the cap room unless they trade Paul George himself.
To play with JT, and you can keep guys like Paul George, Derek White, young boy that we're gonna talk about in a little bit. What's his name? Pritchard. Shit, like
Let me ask you this, right? With this move, with the team the way it sits, are they a pretty good team or are they a contender?
They're not a contender.
But they were a contender.
No.
Oh no, they could possibly be.
They're a contender.
No.
If they did what they did, their team is better now than it was last year.
Yeah, but we talking about Jason Tatum coming off that injury. We have yet to see him at 100%. Like, is he going to go back to the old Jason Tatum? And also, you're judging a team that was mostly ran with Jaylen Brown being at the helm. Now, are the Celtics better than Philly or vice versa? There's a lot of question marks in order to answer that. Philly doesn't have much of a bench. They're very top heavy. And a lot of the players that they have, their play styles are very similar to each other. The Celtics, on the other hand, we got to see how Tatum is going to look like post-injury. I'm surprised that does not get brought up enough. It's not a guarantee he's going to come back being the same player.
You think Philly's better than Boston?
Right now?
They was a number 2 seed last year. Their team is
Embiid
better.
is the biggest question mark.
Okay, so
am I tripping right now?
let's say y'all said
you tripping.
No,
I don't think you're tripping. I don't think you're tripping.
I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest with you. You were so big on the Wolves.
I had to think.
One
about it. I don't
injury.
know.
You
I
said
have
the
to think.
injury
Mitchell
for the
Robinson and Paul George makes them better.
Mitchell Robinson is a player where you can't necessarily start him for a full 82-game season. He does not have that on his track record. The Knicks low-key have been load managing him for the past couple years, and that's when he really produced his best output.
You said if the Wolves have one injury, it's night-night.
Yeah.
It's not
The
for Philly.
Wolves have more depth than Philly does.
We don't know. Philly, it's not done yet.
No, they're done.
So who's on their bench?
Who else can
I think they're right.
Yeah, Philly's pretty much done at the moment. They got Anfrey Simons, Dean Wade, Ariel Hokporty. They made quite a few signings, and their cap number is already at 207. Just $2 million shy from being already at the first apron into the luxury tax.
They're already at the first apron.
Hooked.
I think they're already cooked.
Who is on their bench? Because I don't even know who's on
Nobody.
Philly's
They
bench.
lost everybody.
Come on, they gotta have fucking
They
players.
lost
right?
Andre
They
Drummond.
got
They
Dean Wade. They're
gotta-
losing
they gotta
Andre
sign
Drummond. They're
people.
losing Dean
They
Wade.
lost Quentin Grimes.
They lost Quentin Grimes.
And Kelly Oubre.
And Kelly Oubre is gone.
It looks
Okay, but
cooked.
who's on their team? Somebody, you gotta have a roster.
I think Kyle
for-
Lowry his contract expired. Eric Gordon, who ain't played, neither one of those guys
Gordon
played.
still in the league?
He was there last year. So him and Kyle Lowry didn't even play last year. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they
Like,
got they got Dean Wade.
That's it.
That's it? That's their whole team. So
Dominic
it's six. They're going on the
Look
court
at
with
their
6
bench.
guys.
Look at their bench.
It's pretty bad right now. They probably got about 8 people on the team.
Who they draft?
Filon.
He's a point. He's a point.
Not even a point no more. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know how many basketballs there is in the game of basketball that you can play with. Oh wait, it's one.
That's a great fucking point, right? Yo, Theo Pencil's going in. That's a great point. When you look at who they have out in the wing, you got VJ, Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown. That's a lot of guys who play very similar and occupy the same space. No one really stretches the floor like that.
Just so
Joel Embiid is the biggest dominant. Like, if you're not able to move Joel Embiid, how many more years Joel Embiid got? Please bring that
like
up.
4.
Oh, they're in, bro. I think people don't understand.
4 years?
Philly is in big fucking trouble.
Somebody might take it.
They're going to lose somebody.
That Joel Embiid contract is definitely looking like it's more of a move to actually get rid of that shit. I'm not gonna lie. Embiid in 2026 going forward at almost $60 million plus a season is crazy. With Daryl Morey resigning from the team as president, that whole trust the process era is pretty much coming to an end. And for the 76ers historically, they have taken way too long to move off of guys. They did the same thing for Ben Simmons. That actually narrowed Embiid's window for competing at a high level. And now they're facing the same scenario with Joel Embiid. You gotta know when to move off certain players. He's a homegrown talent, but still, pull the trigger while you can. That fucking contract right now looks untradeable.
Somebody might take it.
They're going to lose somebody.
Everybody got to go fucking fix their team in the East.
No question.
Now the East got a lot stronger. Indiana's coming back. So Boston, you still see him there was a 2 seed, right? Do you still see him as a 2 seed?
I'm gonna keep it a buck. I think you still
If they
disrespect
made
Jason
it last
Tatum.
year, they can make it this year.
I don't think you believe in Jason Tatum being the 1. I think that's the world's biggest issue right now. Y'all, nobody has seen Jason Tatum do it as a 1. I think he's gonna be totally fine.
Hey, hold up. Wait a minute here. We seen Jason Tatum take quite a long time to get over a certain hurdle. And when he did during that championship season, the Celtics signed a couple of insurance policies, aka Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and just the way they added into that whole gumbo pot of just Derek White being on the floor, having a stretch 5 and Al Horford, and then you got Jaylen Brown. So you have a lot of players who could not only shoot, they could attack closeouts, make the right reads. That gave Tatum a lot of fucking options, because that 2022 loss against the Golden State Warriors, them being the favorites, that was not a good look for him. Fast forward today, the Celtics have a lot less talent on this team right now. That's why I asked the question earlier. Had the shoe been on the other foot and Jaylen Brown was the one out with the injury, and Tatum entered into last season with the same team, could they had won 56 games? I don't know.
And I think you don't trust it. You and the rest of the world don't. I trust it.
I haven't seen it.
The guy been first.
We haven't seen it.
That's cool.
We
That's
seen
cool.
JB do it, though.
That's cool. That's fine.
That's all I'm saying.
He's gonna prove everybody wrong this year.
I hear you.
That's point blank period. I think no one believes in Jason Tatum right now, which is wrong in my opinion. Just because they built a team around him doesn't mean JT can't be a 1. He's gonna be a 1 this year, and they're gonna be a damn good basketball team. The culture matters. They still have the core together. And they did not make a move. They made this move to bring flexibility for the future.
And they
You
also
have to.
added Mitch Robinson and
You
Mike
added Mitch
Conley.
Robinson, you got Mike Conley, you got Paul George. Listen, you bought us some guys who know how to win. Mitch just won a championship. That's rebounding for your backup big or your starting big, however you want to play that. If they're able to move these picks for a Trey Murphy on top of this move,
it makes
that's
it
the
exciting.
thing. This is the flexibility. People are you're so focused on Paul George, you're not looking at the full pick grand scheme of
And
things.
what y'all don't understand, they're able to keep their bench. Now they're able to sign Jordan Walsh. They're able to, the lefty kid that can really play. Like, he had a good season
Baylor
last
Shireman?
year. Gonzalez. Like, you got
Gonzalez,
guys that
Hugo.
was good last year.
But also last season, the Eastern Conference was not as strong. They had quite a few injuries. Depending on that Kawhi Leonard situation, if the Raptors do end up securing him, the top end of that Eastern Conference is going to be looking quite heavy. I mean, if the Pistons get Jalen Duren back, you're looking at them, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Raptors with Kawhi Leonard, and Tyrese Halliburton returning with the Pacers. The Washington Wizards look quite interesting. They got AD, a top draft pick. Trae Young is out there to prove something. And of course, you have Philly with Jaylen Brown looking for his revenge. Jason Tatum and the Celtics are going to have to prove to the NBA audience, as well as to the rest of the players around the league, that their decision to dump an NBA Finals MVP for almost nothing was the right move.
Oh, they signed, what you call it back? Harper.
Harper, yeah.
Garza on the team, or am I tripping?
Huh?
Garza.
Garza's on the team.
Garza,
Is he still on
Garza's
there?
solid.
He
No, I
is,
think
I
he signed a
believe.
one-year deal.
It don't matter. They still got big fella.
Yeah.
What's his name? Kettle? What about
Cater. Yeah, he's still there.
He's still there. Vucevic, is he still there?
No, he gone.
That trade right there at the end of last season, while the Celtics were at the top of the Eastern Conference, should have signified to a lot of NBA fans, especially Jaylen Brown, that they weren't fucking with him. Why would the Celtics continuously make moves during the season to kind of tank the team that was at the top of the conference? And we've seen the results in the offseason is because they didn't necessarily believe in him.
Oh, he went back to Orlando.
Who's in Orlando?
The only person they really lost was, other than obviously Jaylen, was.
So my
was
question is
Vucevic.
this, and this is a simple answer. Are the Boston Celtics a contender? Are they a number 2 seed?
We don't know.
They were a 2 seed last year.
We don't know.
With this team, can they be a 2
They
seed?
can.
Yes, they can.
I don't know with Jason Tatum coming off that injury in the Eastern Conference, the way he's shifting around, the top end of that is a lot healthier than it was last season. It took Jason Tatum as well as Jaylen Brown a long time to get over the hump and win that NBA championship back in 2024. They had quite a few blunders, losing to Jimmy Butler 2 times in the playoffs.
We ain't heard shit from Jason Tatum. Nothing.
It's concerning.
He even stayed out the way. I think he wants this. I think he wants this to show he can be the one.
Hey, we're getting somewhere right here. Tatum still has to prove, and I'm not sure if the Celtics fans realize this, but none of the fan bases in the rest of the league believe Tatum is on that same level, that same tier as Luka, Jokic, SGA, and Wemby. That very top tier of just 1A guys. Celtics fans throughout the years, it's almost like they've been trying to convince the rest of the league that Tatum belongs on that level.
I think this is huge for his legacy. This is huge for how people view him.
My thing is, why do he have to say something?
No, I don't think he does any. I don't think he does at all.
I mean, obviously, he's going to get asked the question when it comes to media day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's going to be the first thing they ask. How you feel about your running mate? Y'all been here together from day one. You know, how you feeling?
You think they fuck with each other?
He's going to get the right answer. I mean, I think they fuck with each other enough to mutual respect on the court.
Yep.
But off the court, I mean, you don't have to be best friends with everybody.
Why did Tracy leave Toronto?
He wanted his own team.
He wanted his own team, and he's going back home.
Did he not fuck with Vince?
Yeah, they love each other.
They're cousins.
At the end of the day, I think a guy saw what he could do being a one.
Yeah.
Now they fucked JB.
Hey, Theo Pinson is fucking cooking right here, boy. Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady got love for each other, but at the end of the day, they were out to get theirs. They both believed that they could each be a leader of a team. That is a great fucking comparison right there. And with these politics behind the scenes, I'm not sure if Brad Stevens and the Celtics realize they kind of put a lot of pressure on Tatum for next season coming off that injury to prove them right, that he didn't necessarily need Jaylen Brown, or he can be that top tier kind of on that Luka, SGA, Jokic level. It's an interesting slot that they have put him in. The politics of the new ownership, having to answer to private equity about going over the second apron, getting rid of his co-star, even though the duo of Tatum and Jaylen Brown, when you look at their generation of players, they were far beyond any other duo in the league as far as experience, making NBA Finals, winning NBA Finals. They've been cooking since 2017, that season where they went to the Eastern Conference Finals as young guys against the LeBron James, taking them to a Game 7. But right here, we're going to dive even deeper as we're going to hear from former Golden State Warrior president Bob Myers, the guy who was basically the architect of the Warriors when they went on their run and won those 4 championships. But he gave great insight on the second apron and how the politics of it is playing out in this situation. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Right, on the Warriors, you had a great team. We talked about the second apron the other day. What does the second apron do, or what does it prevent you guys from doing then?
If we'd had it then?
If you had it then, could you have? What couldn't you have done?
I mean, so if you go into the second apron, if I were to tell my owner, who's great, Josh, who spends money and will support winning
Josh
and wants more than anything to win. No,
Josh.
No, absolutely.
Josh.
Yeah. Yes.
Guys,
Yes.
I have 3 names.
Okay.
I have 3 names.
Okay.
McCain, Champagny,
No.
Isaiah Joe.
But that
That's
wasn't
not
just-
Josh.
That's
that-
second apron stuff,
no,
isn't
it's
it?
not.
No.
No. But no, it wasn't.
That's not second
no,
apron
it's not
stuff?
second
What
apron.
was it?
No, that was, look, if you want me to go down each of those things.
Well, the reason I ask
I'm
is because
saying,
what
like,
it seems like is
And all those aren't
these are
created equal.
These are good rotation pieces that maybe not stars, but good NBA players. And it seems like they were let go because no one wants to touch that.
No,
second
they
second
chose
apron.
that. They chose.
Well, no, disabuse me of it.
No, I'm just saying, like, when you see things happen, now the idea of the second apron has become this. I don't think you're lazy. I don't think that at all. But it's a narrative.
Maybe I am. I don't know. Like,
no.
I got you here. Tell me.
It's an easy thing to just say second apron.
Yeah.
Without being in the room, knowing why are people making these decisions. Now,
Sure.
and by the way, those things weren't even near the second apron. Those were tax. Should you go in the tax? Should you not go in the tax? What kind of team do you have? But they weren't even based in that. But they weren't even based in that.
They chose Daniel House instead of Isaiah Joe. They kept Daniel House.
And you by the way, you make mistakes.
So in other words,
too.
that's just at a certain point in a prospect's career, you evaluate him versus another guy, and what it turns out in retrospect, I wish we would have kept that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
But
again,
when you say tax, you're okay. Maybe it is lazy or generalizing. No, it's okay. That I'm saying, but it seemed to me a financial consideration. That those. So it's not. about that.
Okay. Back to the McCain thing was more. Let's do that. Take the picks and try to turn it into something. And obviously Daryl was doing it. I think Daryl did a very good job in many respects. Couldn't get another player back.
Okay.
So when you don't get another player back, it looks just like you just tried to get out of the tack. That's not what happened.
Okay.
The idea was we're going to take that pick and the seconds, and let's grab another player that could maybe help us more. That was the thought. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't get it right. But it wasn't let's get out of the tax. It happened to get out of the tax because no other player was available to trade for. But these are nuances that nobody wants to hear, is my point.
That's kind of like, this has always been an issue with the NBA, but it's more pronounced now. The CBA has always resulted in this weird thing where puzzle pieces have to fit together in a way that they don't have to fit together in baseball or football. Right? But it kind of makes trading, it warps the value of players because sometimes just of the 29 other partners in the league, there's no good puzzle fit, right?
Absolutely. Back to the teams with the Warriors and we were spending money. What it might stop you from doing is, Iguodala was a fantastic player for the Warriors. There was a year where we had to decide to keep Andre, and I can't predict what the second apron would have been then, but maybe it costs you a guy like that. But if you want to go back to that, and I think Josh would do the same thing, where you've just come off a championship. In that case, I think a couple. If you guys owned a team, the second apron is not something you cannot go through. But what I would tell you two, if you owned a team, I would have to tell my GM, if you want me to go to the second apron, you better tell me I'm one of the best 3 teams in the league. that I have a good chance of winning the championship.
I understand that
You understand
perfectly. This is the opposite of what you were arguing with me when I was critical of Dolan for instructing reportedly his front office not to touch the second apron after winning a championship for the first time in 53 years and allowing a backup center, a guy who shouldn't get more than 19 or 20 minutes a game, his body might break down, whatever. But Mitchell Robinson was one of the core 7 guys, I would say, on that Knicks team. Very important piece. They let him walk out the building, go to Boston for nothing in exchange, simply because of financial consideration. And what Bob just said is if you're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league, you could touch that second apron, not for nothing. Mitchell Robinson, I'm arguing that second apron is really bad, and I don't know if it's an unintended consequence or not, but when no one will touch it, when no one wants to touch it, I think it creates a hard cap league in a way that even the NFL is not a hard cap.
Going back to what Max Kellerman said, he believes it was unintentional. No, it was intentional. With these NBA teams getting ridiculous evaluations, the Lakers 10 billion, Celtics the same, there's fewer and fewer people that can come in and just personally finance and just buy these teams. So now with entities like private equity coming in or just Saudi money, that's a huge upfront cost where most NBA franchises year in and year out, they lose money. So to offset that, the owners understood that they had to pivot the rules and make sure all that player movement from the previous decade does not repeat over again. Why would private equity come in and help these new owners purchase these teams for a franchise where they have no control of where stars go when stars carry most of the value? Not only limiting player movement is to their advantage, but also creating excuses for quote unquote first apron, second apron rules when we all know in reality, that's just a hard cap.
I think what it does is it makes, look, owners have done well, the league's done well, they operate it how they want to operate it. If you're getting into that type of stratosphere economically, what a lot of general managers are doing now is telling their owner, we can't do that, right? It didn't used to be the case when it was just money. It's not the general manager's money. They would say, we need more money. We need more money.
Yeah.
And the owner would feel pressure, but now
you can't draft pick
right,
gets within
yeah. So
trades.
if you're my owner and I go, Max, you go, I want to go to the second apron. I want to win. And I go, probably doesn't make sense because we're going to lose
the
this.
front office tells the owner. So wait, Bob, this is what I thought originally. My knee-jerk reaction when they weren't going to re-sign Mitchell Robinson was, come on, James Dolan. And then talking to people, it's like, no, maybe the front office is going to him and saying, look, we won't be able to make trades.
And that could have happened. That could have happened.
But also, let me say this, when it comes to Mitchell Robinson or just any player that's kind of in his archetype, I'm not talking about him being a center. I'm talking about him being a player that's injury prone. Ja Morant, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, all these guys are usually unavailable because of their injuries. And these are the worst offenders, or these are the worst players to have if you're going to start hitting some of these luxury tax aprons. That's why we've seen in the past season, all these guys virtually got traded almost for nothing.
Then the reports came out, whether they're right or wrong. If they're right, this is really troubling, that the front office wanted to go into the second apron for Mitchell Robinson. I don't know if it's true or not. Yeah. I'm saying if it's true, and Dolan was the one who said no. That's when I lost it, and he was trying to talk me off.
I just don't see it.
I think what you might have been asking is, how many different champions in the last, was it 8 in the last 8 years?
Yeah, 8 in a row.
Look, this is not anti-Knicks, but if you were betting on the field versus the Knicks for 27,
almost for any year,
probably you'd bet on the. It's not. Again, they did a tremendous job. They're a great team. They deserve all the praise. So to your question is it going to prohibit those Spurs, those Lakers, those Warriors, those Bulls of the past, the modern dynasties? Will we see that again? That's because, can you keep going into the second?
And do you want that? And how much?
I don't know.
Do you want
that's
it?
what you guys. You've been in the media a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I think you do. I think fans want it. I think it. Knowing that those years you guys had where you went to 4 straight finals and you played against the Cavs 4 straight times, it built something amongst the fans.
Of course, the fans do want it, but the real question is, are the current owners of some of these teams in a position where they can dip into the tax? Because remember, they didn't necessarily have the money
to purchase these teams to begin with. And the Celtics find themselves in that exact situation. And that's why Jaylen Brown, just in his prime right now, and a guy who's always available, got dropped for almost no reason, or appears to get dropped for no reason. And this puts a lot of pressure on Tatum, as well as Brad Stevens in that front office. A lot of the excuses with Jaylen Brown not fitting in with the analytics and other players are actually worth more or just have better rankings. None of that shit makes sense, and it's gonna all come to the table this following season. Oh, best believe Judgment Day will arrive for all the excuses to be justified. It's politics as usual. But you guys definitely hit up the links in the description below. Check out my NBA True Story playlist for more segments like this. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.